I wanted to thank everybody for joining us for this webinar focused on the Easy Emission software, part of the Testo 350 and 340 series, a very powerful software package that can bring a lot of value to our customer base. So again, thank you everybody for attending. From a question and answer perspective, Craig McKim, who's our presenter today, will have periodic breaks, but you always have the option of sending a chat message to me, and we'll have a section at the end for making sure we get questions answered. We want this to be conversational, so please make sure you ask questions. I want you all to get what you need out of this program, and we'll be looking for feedback at the end of it. And again, welcome everybody to the Easy Emission software. I wanted to turn this presentation over to Craig McKim. So again, I want to transition this over to Craig McKim of Testo, talking about the Easy Emission software. Craig, have at it.
All right, thanks. Hello, everyone. So what we're going to do today is, well, first a little bit, my name is Craig McKim. I'm currently located in Sparta, New Jersey, in my office. And what we're going to do is going to go through the Easy Emission software. As you can see, there's going to be kind of two sessions here. Easy Emissions 101, just to get started. I hear a lot of background noise out there. I don't know how well it's going to, if someone still has a, or as John said, try to stick a mute button on if possible. So the first part is going to be kind of getting started. And the second part is how you use the software to do some actual testing and kind of a little bit more in depth on how the software is being used. So let's just get started then. No. All right. Let's go down here. All right, so for folks that have, well, from the very, here's the what we call the initial page. When you first start the software, you'll get this page, and on it, I'll just kind of go over some of these tab menus, and then I'll go to the connecting to the analyzer. But you'll have this initial page which provides these shortcuts, which goes to different functions of the analyzers. As you notice here, I've got Testo 350 as a shortcut, or a Testo 335, and these effectively are the same function. It has the same functionality as the tabs up on top right here. All right? So that's what your initial screen looks like, but I'll take step back and notice over here I have to do a connection to the analyzer. Let me show you how that gets done, because different analyzers will connect differently. Let's see. And we've got a PowerPoint presentation that we can provide to you, which could actually be a very good learning tool to use it. And what it will provide is methodologies on how you connect to analyzers, how you create folders, download measurements, analyze your measurement, export data, including, then the second, which is part of this presentation, is the more advanced users on how to use more than one analyzer, putting in reporting templates or customized printouts and all that sort of thing. But to connect to an analyzer, if you've got an old 350, it'll use these connections down here, right to the PC. This will go to the computer, and this is the bus system. And what I'm just providing you is a doc that will provide to you that you can download, or we'll give to you, or Reiko will give it to you, so that you can use this later on. This is how you connect to a PC if you're going to be using multiple analyzers, so that we can daisy chain these analyzers, as well as showing ways of connecting with the Bluetooth. So just wanted to kind of show that real quickly. Let's get back into the actually the software. So right now I've got a 350 hooked up, and currently in my software I can connect to a 335, a 350 XL, or the new 350. I've got the new 350 hooked up right now. If you have these in your screen, those can be removed. by clicking over to Settings and going to what we call a configuration page. And on this configuration page, this is where you can, click, I don't want to see that, or I do want to see that on my software. It also provides a way of changing your initial page that I showed you. It'll set up the units in the software. If you've got some special site data for a report, this is where it would go. Let's see. I'm not going to go over that. 102. Your own data. So if you want to do a printout that shows address of the company or put in a logo, this is where you would install a logo. I just did this for Rayco this morning. And many color schemes. This is what Holly likes, but we're going to go back with back. The software update. Many people, when they're doing the software, it can check. Oh, excuse me. This is a software update as far as the backup. Software update means, and what I would suggest is once you have the software, as you come to this page and you unselect this square. If you don't do that, every time you hook up the software, it'll look for a web page it'll look for an internet connection, and it'll download more recent version. What I'd rather do personally is, before you go ahead and do that, check out what the recent version is, because once you get used to your software, you may not want to change that. If you're talking many languages, we can do this, and here's a kind of an important section to know where your data goes as a backup, because all the data that's taken, you can pull it up from Easy Missions, but having a backup on your hard drive, this is how you do that, or to a separate drive, and you can identify whether you want weekly or daily or whatever your backup scheme would be. Along with the database, you can, back it up, restore it, compact, and repair it. So let's just go back to this tab, which is the tab that if you've got 350s, you'd use. If you have a 340, you do this tab. But these tabs here just have a few less functionalities, a few less tabs for functions between a 340 and a 350, or a 340 and the new 350. Well, let's go there. Go to Setup. Save these changes. We can do that, yes. And what this is going to do, it's going to connect to the analyzer, and on this setup page, it shows you a control unit and an analyzer box. All right? Let me go back to the control unit. In the control unit, you have a variety of things that you can do with the control unit. Right now, there's in the diagnostics, my control unit's fine, I'm not having a problem. Custom printout, if you want to have the printout come up with some special data or information, this is where you'd fill it out right here. Languages, and if you want to password protect the software, you can do that as well. So that's what the control unit does. If you click on the 350 analyzer box, it gives you a bit more features, or a bit more control of the analyzer. It'll tell you what your connection is, what the analyzer is, serial number, firmware version. The bus address is actually the address that is on the analyzer box, and mine is 15. Yours may be 3 or any number of numbers. Again, diagnostic. You can set up the display, smoke number. This is an interesting one for fuels. If you're using a customized fuel, you can either select the fuel or do a customized fuel by putting in the information as a customized fuel in here. A more important thing is on this setup screen, excuse me, my mouse just clicked a little bit. On the setup screen, you can see your sensors, when they were last calibrated, and what the calibration showed. For instance, on the Testo sensor, here's my last calibration. Where the lifespan of the sensor is. Over here it shows a little bit of a graph about that. So my NO sensor is still at 100% life. On my CO sensor, what we did to show this graph, we were messing around with it, and what we did is we calibrated it incorrectly at 23 ppm to try to take the sensor kind of offline. But what this shows is a graph of what a sensor life would be. In reality, this would be completely reversed. It would start at 100% and then slowly come down. When you get to 70% on the sensor life, the analyzer will tell you that it's a good time to start to think about replacing the sensor. Once it gets to 50, you'll get an error message that the sensor is no longer it can no longer be used. There's some life still in it, but the life that's still left is not going to provide for an accurate signal. So underneath setup, that's where we are right there. But to kind of, when you first open the software, let's go back to this initial page. So underneath the real-time measurement, this is where you start. And what the software will do is it'll provide a variety of ways of viewing it. Just so that we got some data, I've got a candle here, of which I'll light so that you can actually see data as opposed to zeros. So maybe in a few seconds we'll get some CO and a little bit of NOx. But here is a typical screen. You can either see it as a testing screen. You can come over to this display, show the display. You can change it, make it larger, make it smaller. What's nice about this display is that down here you can set it up to show your average values. And whenever you click reset, it resets all these values as the average right here. Come back to the measured values. Let's see if we're getting a little bit of CO. Not much. Oh, let me get a little bit more flame here. So if you hear a squeal or a bell, that means I've set off the fire alarm. But at least until the fire alarm goes, my apples will smell nice. Oh, let's see what we can do. So there's our measured values. Here's our display showing mean averages. And here we have a chart which you can set up and do custom. You can make a custom chart by going to these settings and sticking in another variable if you'd like to. This invalid screen means that my chart over here as a user scale, I got to select it. Right now I'm selecting, it shows 1, user scale right up here is 1, that's in a percentage. So this scale down here needs to be a 2, because then it's in ppm. So I'll have the correct scale. So now I've got O2, CO, NOx, and NO right here. And what it'll show on the scales over here are only four of the scales. Let's go back to the measured values. Stop a measurement.
Back the way it was.
So I can stop it now, and I can save this measurement, or I can export to Excel. So if I export to Excel, it'll just ask, you can give it a name, and go ahead and export it. If you want to save it, you can save it and put it in a file or folder. For here, let's call it Araco, and it's going to go in the building boiler called Cleaver Brooks. We'll just go OK. All right. So that's kind of how we do a simple just test, which is, let's just go back over that. If I'm on an initial page, I just come over to the Testo 350 tab. I come up to real-time measurements. That pulls up this screen. It connects to the analyzer, and I just go start. I'll start taking measurements. Right now my measure rate is at every 5 seconds, and I'm doing a flue gas test.
Obviously, you can sample that a lot, like every 300 seconds or something, other than every 5. It's a little
correct.
populated.
So someone's, yes. Let's see. So there's my online testing, menu and tab. Let me show you setting up folders. One of the things that is a little bit difficult when you first get this software is that we have no way of populating folders. So when you do a test and you say start and you save as, what you'll get on the screen is this no name and no name. And a lot of data will go into that no name file. So the best thing to do is to set up a folder. Here, you click on this tab, insert a new folder, save now, nope. And here's the folder name that you essentially it's say, here's where your testing is going to take place. You fill this thing out. Let me kind of, well, let's put something in here. All right. That's enough to at least get something started. Here's my folder called John. And under that, I've got a list of sites. So I need to put in a site. And what this site is actually where the probe is going to be placed. So site name, it could be it's a CAD engine, and it's after the turbocharger, which it would be, or it's in the stack. You can put a remark in there. There's your save. All right. Along with that site, I can change it. I can add what the unit number was, what the serial number was. I'm running natural gas as the fuel. I've got a CO permit limit, a NOx permit limit. And now all of that information will be held underneath that site. So now when I go do a test, 350 real-time measurement, I'm starting it. I'm taking a sample.
Is this USB connected, or can you Bluetooth it?
Stop it, and now I can save it to that file that I just made called John and the site name.
Lid broadcast up to the front where you're set.
All right? So if you want to go back now and see this, see your information, what we call these we call these measurements. So you click on the measurement, search measurement, and there's two ways of looking at the measurements, depending on what your preference is. We've got this list, which just shows them all in a line. For me, it's a little bit sometimes difficult. My preference is I look at these tree views. And what this will show is, let's see, I did some tests this morning underneath RACO testing, and at this site, I have that test, that test. Let's see if I got a double test. All right. So underneath the RACO testing site, underneath the ISO turbine building, I made a site, that was the site I made, and this is the measurement I put in there. These measurement numbers, these are IDs, these are done sequentially in the software. So if I want to open that up, this is what the analyzer, here's the serial number, when the measurement started or stopped. I can add a comment to it. If I want to see the graphics, there it was, or the measured values. And I happen to have selected that we were doing a mean and a max, or I can take that off. But this is a nice thing to do after the measurements so that you can calculate out the means and save it in the software. You could also do the same thing, though. Remember that when you're just doing a test, you can also see the mean looking at that display. So these are the measurements. This is how you'd collect them. Let's go back here, real time. So I'm doing a real-time measurement, and I can start it. And not only do I see, these readings here, I can see the display, the chart. While the analyzer is running, I can't change the display order, but over here I can go to analyzer control, and if I want to go to the gas or fresh air phase, I click that. And now what's happening is that the analyzer's changed the valve, and now I'm just collecting fresh air. So it'll take a little while. We'll probably get down to 0, but let me see if I can get a better CO reading.
It says 350 on the top of that.
Okay. So there I'm going to 0. Now if I go back to analyzer control.
So it can switch ports and he pulled fresh air.
I'll take it off.
Check. That's kind of,
Which we can't do on these. So now I'm back on, I'm on the stack. Now here you can also, if you want to stop the readings, I can save it. Let me put this back into John. All right, under John. All right, I can start again, and I can either delete all my data, or I can start start collecting it there. So you want to remove the, you want to delete the values now. I just want to start again.
get a sensor over.
All right. So connecting to the analyzer, went to the menu, tap an overview, set up folders and sites, online testing, support, analyzer controls, and calibration. So I think I did that quickly. Is there any right now, any questions so far? Okay. So let me stop it. So let's see, go back to these settings. I think we went through configuration. Okay, no. Back up version. So one of the other things we can do on the in the software is And what many people will do is you can download from an Excel spreadsheet if you've got populated site information, customer information, downloading that into the software and then uploading from the software into the analyzer. That's by clicking this measure site screen, and let's say I want to upload that one, a few of those into the analyzer's memory. We can do that as well. And that's how you do that. Now, the analyzer, when you go to the analyzer, it will have this site information in the analyzer. Testing programs, we could do a similar thing like that, which are in the analyzer as well. We'll talk about this here later. And then download measurement data, which if the analyzer's got a pretty extensive memory, you can put all the data in it and then bring it back in and download everything. Right now, I don't have too much in this analyzer, but if I wanted to select, these two, and then down here, I can either download them, at which point they'll go into a no-name file, download that, and you can tell it where to go. All right. So what we can do now, let's get back to the initial page. So we've gone through connection and it's kind of getting started 101. So we'll go into use for Testo, or using for 102 for testing. We talked about analyzer controls up there for the calibrations, which I have right here. Let me just go through that real quick again, so that you can see where that screen is. What you'll do is you go to Setup, you click on the Analyzer box. That's what you want to highlight. If you've got a 350XL, one of these tabs will say Recalibration. You click the Recalibration. On the new 350, it says Sensors. On the 340, I believe it also says Recalibration. You click on that, and to actually do a calibration, let's say on the NO sensor, I click on this calibration adjustment. It brings up another screen where I put in the calibration value. In the older 350XL, when you click on the tab that says Recalibration, instead of having this graphic information, there will be a table. And on the table, you just select CO, enter in your calibration gas value, and then hit Start. At that point, another screen comes up, which is similar to this screen. And on the 350, you can actually calibrate in a cross-sensitivity adjustment. But for simplicity purposes, we can stick an NO at, let's call it 100 ppm. That would be my cal gas. Please enter the concentration which you want to calibrate and click Next to go through the calibration process. So I can screw this NO sensor up. Please apply. And then you'll have a screen that comes up with what the sensor value is and the test value. And right now, I'm getting 0 because I have no gas. And so I'll cancel this, don't want to do this. But that's how you do the calibration on the software. So let's go back to the 350. I'm going to do a real-time measurement. And let's say you've got to do a you're doing a test, all right? And the test requires grams per horsepower hour or pounds per year. Well, the software has the ability to calculate out according to a special setup. And what that is right here, called the measurement type. So let me select, hold on, go down here, measure types. So what's a measure type? That's what we refer to in the analyzer. And a measure type is, and it says manage measure types. What a measure type does is it'll implement calculations, all right? And it kind of connects them to what a pre-programmed measurement is going to be. It also connects it to a defined input field, let's say horsepower or kilowatt hour or fuel usage. It pulls in a part of the program, which is over here. These two things are connected because it'll say, okay, I'm going to do a program with 3 tests, 15 minutes each. And it all kind of associates it to an actual report template. So that's what a measurement type is. How you'd select a measurement type is, it depends on, well, what we've done is we've made predefined measurement types. And depending on what you find out in the field, you may have access to different data or different measurements that come from the engine or around the engine, or, for instance, ET BSFC. Well, if you're only here's your input parameters and output parameters. If you want to get just grams per horsepower hour and all that you have is BSFC, you would look at ET, which means engine testing 1. A lot of folks have actually the horsepower as well as the fuel usage. So it may be an ET2 or an ET3, depending on what you have on site. If you know fuel consumption and you do have an F factor, then you would select ET3 as your measurement type, or ET4, depending, So we've made these measurement types to be from probably the least accurate based on what you have on site to a more accurate because you actually have fuel consumption and you're not using a manufacturer's spec. So that's how those are selected. Now let me show you what we've got. So right there I got a little bit confused. I was clicking on the 350S XL and I got no connection. So this is where it would be good to go to that configuration screen and get rid of those things. But anyway, here we go. So here's a real-time measurement. So how do you select one of those measurement types I just talked about? So it's connected to the analyzer. And if I want to select a measure type, then I come over here. Right now, we've got default setting of a flue gas test. But if I click that, I'll have engine test 4, engine test 4. This one's got a chart, this one doesn't. Here's another type of ET test, another type of ET engine testing test. Here's a boiler test. I've even got a RACO test in there. So this is a measurement type, so what it does is it sets up a testing scenario based on what it is that's in that type. So let's go to, just so you can see them, let's go to these, what we call measure types. So we go to that manage measure type. So all the measure types we have in here, we've got a CTM 034, a draft measurement, you'll see it says system and system. If you've got new software, you're going to see those, but you're not going to see these user-defined measure types. So here's the other system. There's a user-defined one. Now, kind of the beauty of the software is that this measure type, once I click on it, it shows down here what the measure type involves. Let me get a simpler one, though, first. Let's go with, just so that you can see, flue gas test. When I go to a flue gas test as a system, there is no really testing program. There's really nothing in input fields. There's no formulas. There's really not too much except for this flue gas test measurement where I imported my logo. There it is. But this is a system measurement. You can't change it. If we go to, let's say, an ET4, now there's a testing program in here under ET4. And under the Testo 350, it's a manual start on this one, taking a measure every 1 second for 5 minutes, and then rinsing for 5 more minutes. So we have an actual test that's set up under this measure type, grams per horsepower hour. The input fields that we have installed show horsepower, fuel, F factors, fuel consumption, ignition timing, and a variety of other ones. As you can see, fuel temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. So those are variables that we use in what we call the formula builder. Variable 3, variable 1, 0 are coming from these in this formula. This defines what we're going to do. We're going to grab the data from row 1 to row 5, row 6 to row 5, pull it in, and it's all going to print out on this report. I just click the edit on this report, and we have this pre-set up where it will show customer information or site information. This site information will get populated from the folder information that was already preset. So every time you go to the site, it will populate out site information, horsepower, if that's the case. It will also calculate out mean averages. That's on page 1. Page 2, or preview page 1, excuse me. So that's what it would look like, when we're done, but with all these fields put together. So we only have one page there. So let's go to Testo 350 now. Go to real-time measurement, and instead of doing measurement type flue gas test, we'll do measurement type, I don't know, let's try this guy. Hit start. I've got a candle going. So now what you'll see on our measurements is that this measure type has defined, I want to see O2, CO, NOx, CO2, but we've also added another column called grams of horsepower for NOx and CO, dilution factor, and then another grams and pounds per year. So we have NOx and CO in pounds per year, and let's see what else we have over here. Tons per year. All right? So it's measuring, but it's not calculating anything right now because this measure type also sets up an input field. So let me stop this. That input field, now you can put in, it's a 1,000 horsepower engine. Excuse me, engine speed of, 400 RPM. Fuel flow, 10,000. Let's just give it some numbers here. Technician, CM, BTUs, let's see. So by putting in the proper input parameters, it'll start calculating out, here's now our grams per horsepower hour based on those fictitious things I put in there. So now it's all calculating it out on your grams. If I say stop, all right, save as, I'm going to save it as, okay, we'll go there. Now if I want to go to the measurements, because I just saved a measurement, click on measurement, search for the measurement. So now I'm in RACO testing. I click on that. It opens it up. And this one right here, let's see, I put it in the CAT 360, right? And here it shows the measurement which I just ran at 1138, and I ran it according to that measurement type. I click on that, and now I can pull it up. It shows the horsepower and fuel usage in the information. There's my graphics. There's my measured values. If I want to show the max mean, I can go ahead and do that. Preview the report. Because this measure type was tested, or was, let me back up. In order to get the report to print out correctly, it has to be originally tested with that measurement type. If I select one of these other measurement types, the calculations won't connect correctly. So here's our raw data. This is starting to get filled out. That's getting filled out. And this is where the averages would go. We only had one test. We didn't have 3 tests because it didn't run 3 tests. But here would be the average on test 1 because I only did that much. But remember, this whole thing is all customized. You can customize it however you want to. Let me just show you real quickly. It's a measure type. I want to manage it. I think I just made a John earlier. Where's my measure type, John? Or, no, RACO. So I've got a RACO measure type. I go to the report designer. All right? So if I wanted to make a measure type with my own logo, all right? I click over here, say logo, it's sticking in right there. Let's say right here, I want that to be a data field. I click the data field, and I select, so I want the contact person in that data field. So now there's the contact person for the data field. This, for instance, happens to be a chart of the data. Or if I want to make another square over here and put it in a table and put in the measurement data only, now this is where the data will be stored. So what's my report going to look like? Well, I don't have any data, so it's not showing it. But that's how we came up with, save changes, no. This measure type, that measure type, and that measure type. This measure type happens to have a pre and post calibration place where you can put it. So on the report designer, when I clicked on this, I came down here, went to the report designer to see what it looks like. Here are my pre-CO and NO and NO2 that get placed in the report. What's interesting about this is that this pre-post, I can export it. It comes as a little zip file. I'll stick it on my desktop, save. Ah, it already exists. All right. Well, let's see, where is that? There it is right there. I can forward this in an email to somebody, and what you do is you just go to your software, and you import it. And now all of this information, all of those formulas, those input fields, and the program now are imported into your software. And so now that you have that, you have this, if you want to change the formula because you're using a molecular weight that's a little bit different than somebody else, you can go into this formula and change it. These happen to be method EPA 19 calculations. But if a state has something else, and you're pretty good at Excel, because this isn't completely Excel, but it's very much Excel-like, it's Excel-based. Let me see here if I can do that. Where is that? It'll come to me in a second. So, but that's what the measure types are. So, as I said, measure types, what is it? It's a predefined measurement that encompasses almost everything. But in order for the program or your report to come out correctly, when you do your original test, you have to select the measurement type. For instance, let's go to this one. All right? The input fields, you've got to fill those in. Those are those input fields. If I go to another measure type, let's try another one. It's got a little bit less. Oh, they're all these guys are pretty similar. This one's got pre-cal, post-cal information that you can put into it. You can see they're not there. So you have to make sure that that gets selected. The other thing is that in order to run a test and have it run automatically, see this little, let me go to measured values. Let's say you're starting a test, all right? Let's get this thing started. Right now, I'm just doing a kind of a standard test. See down here? It doesn't show anything as a standard test. Let me stop this. What I want to do is I want to use this test with that pre-configured program that I have. Once I collect that, I can't change my data rate. Now I hit start. All right, so now I'm starting, the predefined rate is every 10 seconds, and down here it shows I'm in a logger, I'm in phase number 1, test gas 1 of my first test. So you can see this down here as things go along. You can still see your display in your chart. You can also see the input fields, which I didn't fill in, but those need to be filled in order for these measured values to be done correctly. Let me stop it. Input fields, horsepower is 1,000, 500, 1,000. Start. All right, now we're getting some calculations there. Let's see. So we went through calibration, measure types, how to change them, report templates. Here's my automatic program by just clicking this thing right here. I can change it. Once I click it, it goes gray. Now I'm working the program. So that's what these engine testing That's how you do with the engine testing. We also have some boiler tests as well. We did importing of the measure types. Save now? No. By using these buttons right here. I showed you, if you want a report, you edit it like that. So I think, in a nutshell, I think I've gone over everything. Any questions on that? There probably is, but if anyone has any. We also have, let's see here. If you want to get into a little bit more detail, doesn't like that. We have a PowerPoint presentation that would also talk about how you download the measure types, how to import the measure types, everything essentially that I've gone through, site-specific parameters. Okay, slideshow, exit. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. Nope. So this is what I wanted to show you. Special site configurations. Here's we were talking about the site data, model number, permit number. This is all about designing and creating a report. So, but I think that it's pretty much in detail. So, looking at it, I believe that you can get yourself in great trouble, and to the point where you can ask a couple of questions, and then you're off to the races, and you'll be able to do it.
Hey, Craig?
Yes.
One question that came through was what is the most current version of Easy Emission? .6 SP1. Let's see, where else can we go that is, all right. Very good.
All right.
Again, we're still unmuted. I apologize if we've got any feedback taking place. Were there any other questions, or were there things that anybody wanted us to try and drill down to in more detail or more specifics? Okay, Craig.
Beautiful.
Craig, thank you very much. That was a great job. For the group, we'll be taking a copy of this webinar and posting it on the website. We'll also have with that the PowerPoint that Craig is referencing that walks through this process as a reference tool, so we can come back to it. The other resource that's available is get in contact with us. The software, as Craig ran through in a quick hour, is very powerful. It's customizable and it can be optimized for everybody's unique application area. But like all software, it's stuff that you have to get into and do stuff with just to get used to it. So feel free to call on us. As I said, we'll be posting a copy of this and the PowerPoints on the webinar. Please let us know what we can do to help you all out. And I would like to thank everybody for attending, and Craig specifically, you for taking the time to put this together for us. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.